So, like you guys, I had the chamber music bug when I was about your age, and it is, and later, when I got to be, 26 or so, I got my first college teaching job, and I cannot tell you how many people graduate high school without getting to do this. This is just a phenomenal thing that you're part of such an active programming. Great coaches. Could you all stand up for a minute? I just want to try a different way of sitting. You said you wanted a sight line, but I never saw a sight line. But then again, you weren't looking up, so you were trying to find out. Jacob, I want you to feel out of the group, that this is sort of a tricky thing to put you slightly behind Andrew. Sometimes we include that. And it did feel to me like two duos, because you're so pivoted towards them. So let's put you here, unless you end up saying it makes you feel that. Let's try it. Oh, so Andrew, why don't you sit down? See if you can see Jonathan.
I can't really move my chair.
Can you pivot? Just turn the chair to you. We still have two and two. Let's put Russell here and let's do everything. Okay. So if this feels okay on stage, you might live with it. And the other solution I started to explain to you is this, right? So somehow if you move at the right moment, they can see underneath your scroll if you need to, if you're sitting forward. Beautiful, beautiful playing. So just a couple individual things. First of all, my page-turning hero. Would you like a page-turner? I should have thought of that before. Would anybody like to see the score go before your eyes? I'm trying to. I used to be easy. Would you like to go? Thank you, thank you. Might as well make it even easier. So, Jonathan, yes. Are you playing romantic repertoire? Some romantic piano pieces in your piano lessons these days?
Yeah, I'm playing Chopin a lot.
Chopin, there you go. So it's one of the glorious things to do. You want a chair? To play romantic repertoire solo is a different kind of pedaling than when you play chamber music. So what I wanted to suggest to you is that when you play with just about anybody else, singer, winds, anybody but percussion, let's say that, they are kind of your pedal. In other words, often the way music is written, the other instruments will make resonance after your sound. So you can afford to be drier in your practice room than you realize. It won't sound quite as beautiful and velvety as when you practice as it will when you practice Chopin. But does that make sense to you? And the reason is the more digital and clear you are, the clearer everybody hears you, and it's really beautifully together, and the audience can hear the texture. Does that make sense? Russell, you know how so much of the time cellos rule? I mean, so much of the time cello part has a lot of grounding to the group and gravity. What I want to suggest to you is in the scoring of this group, I think you could be less about being the ballast and the anchor and more, you could look for places where you're more about buoyancy, because often this is an orchestra, this is a band of strings versus that concerto sound. And sometimes I thought you could put more forthright energy. Even sometimes, when the Emerson Quartet used to be in residence here, did you ever hear them?
No.
Probably a long, long time ago, I can't remember how many years. We used to call this, the name of their violist is Larry Dutton. Anybody heard the Emersons live? So sometimes you get to a viola solo and he's playing along and he goes, and we used to call this doing a Larry Dutton. So sometimes, I can't always hear you, so sometimes, can you put your viola up? Within reason, you'll want to do this. And these guys know you well, you know the piece, it's not going to cut off the communication, but I think you might want to try that sometimes. Now because of that challenge, because of where your F holes are aimed, sometimes the violists and cellos come to blows over whether you sit here or here. Yeah. So it might be interesting to try one rehearsal the other way, just to see.
Yeah, we usually sit opposite.
Oh, well, why are you not doing that now?
I don't know, that's
Using one of the
question.
You can move the chair. Don't ever lead less than that. That is fantastic, really beautiful leading. And Andrew, all I wanted to say was use the frog more because we need to hear you more. Very comfortable up here, but do everything you need to do in your lessons to be really comfortable down there too. Okay, so allegro ma non tanto, what does that mean? That's the tempo, right? Anybody know? It means allegro but not too much. But I think now that you've worked this so beautifully and you're hearing each other, maybe you can take away the second part of that sentence. I think we can go more towards allegro, because almost every section can have a little more sweep or a little more spark, and maybe we'll have longer lines that way too. So one of the dangers is that melodic material can sit. Or, here's another way of putting it, sometimes there are too many downbeats, too many accents on downbeats. So we want to look for long sweeping phrases. If you were conducting a Dvorak symphony, you might make big motions, right? You wouldn't necessarily do little neat motions for this piece, right? Keep smiling. Yes? Do you agree? Yes. Can we go from the beginning? I wanted to ask you about tempos. Did you talk about tempos for different materials in your rehearsals?
Yeah.
What was the decision about the beginning versus the forte, bar 17?
Forte should be a little bit faster.
Not
Okay.
too much.
Okay, so you have made a deliberate decision to be faster at 17. To me, it's too radical. So if we had to put in words how much tempo change we make, within romantic music, there's more of a change than, say, if you're reading Mozart, right? There's always going to be some give and take in almost every piece we play. But here we have more give and take. But to me, it's too early in the piece, 17 bars in, to take off that much faster. It's as if he wrote in another tempo. So Jonathan, what would it be like for you to, before you start, think of how fast measure 17 is, and then you start with a sort of easy roll at the beginning that's that tempo, pretty close to that tempo. Let's see what it feels like. Gorgeous cello solo, but it's still beautiful fast, right? Is that really, let's see, is that really an eighth note?
No.
And Andrew does that too, maybe sympathetically. Where do you have that? Yeah. So Jonathan has triplets. Da, 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 da. You guys have to be very square to make it a duple. Ta dee da dee da. Jonathan, did you play the left hand alone? Make sure it's a true eighth note.
Was I supposed to?
No, I just want to hear. That's great, but if 17 is dee da dee da dee. So Brahms uses 2 against 3 all the time to make this kind of blended resistance. He puts resistance within the phrase. But Dvorak uses polyrhythms. We're going to have that eighth note against 3, so it's kind of 3 against 4. Sometimes to create a little playful turbulence within the texture. So let's see if we can hear your eighth. Can you do the beginning? Good, let's do both hands though. I want to hear the 3 against 4.
It usually starts pretty slow, like the way it was. But.
Okay, so maybe this is a little more off the ground. We're just experimenting with it. I love hearing the eighth note. It really makes it feel playful. So Russell, what can you do with your sound instead of playing? Do you play Kol Nidre by any chance? Well, there are some really deep, rich cello pieces. I bet you played some. But instead of playing a slow adagio sound, what can you do with your sound to make it feel very alive and a little excited? You take that apart, look at both my hands. What could I do? Or what am I doing?
Faster vibrato.
Faster vibrato. And what?
Change your bow speed.
Yeah, what about changing bow speed? Where do I do that?
A little faster and moves up, and a little slower.
Yeah, right here, right? Wherever wherever there's a really expressive or louder note. Okay, let's start with just the vibrato. So can you start with vibrato without your bow? Just feel very electric and feel the energy coming from your back. Great, and relax the other fingers. So it's just very loose and floppy feeling. Great, now let's try it. With the bow. Definitely better. How about starting softer, because then you can connect to that. I love the new vibrato. Can we do the beginning? And you're thinking of bar 17 before you start. Material not to sound like we're sitting. What could we do to keep that, letter A, is it, in your parts? What do we do to keep that having a sense of line, even though it's double dotted?
I'll hold that longer.
Okay, can you demonstrate? That's much better, great. So get all the way to the end of the bow. We want a crisp cat. Just pick a note and play that with me. Any note? Charles Ives, here we go.